Hello and welcome to today's Bitrix24 webinar, Better Business Processes. Thank you very much for joining today. Okay, so first of all, we'll just go through an introduction. So I'm Sam Connor, Sales Manager here at Interface, and we're Bitrix24 Gold Partners, and we're based in the UK, the US, and Hong Kong. And we offer a full range of services to assist you with Bitrix24. So starting off with pre-sale support. So what we can do is we can help you to evaluate Bitrix24 and see if it is a good fit for the critical requirements that you are evaluating the system for. And if it is a good fit, if you decide to move forward with Bitrix24, we can provide our implementation services to get Bitrix24 set up exactly how the business needs it to work. If you're interested in the self-hosted edition of Bitrix, so essentially a private cloud edition, then we can provide our hosting service, and we also provide training and ongoing dedicated support to ensure you get the most possible value out of the Bitrix24 system. Okay, so if you're joining today's webinar to actually get a bit more of a flavour of Bitrix24 as a whole, let's just actually go through what Bitrix24 actually is. So Bitrix24 is a collaboration suite of well in excess now of 40 different modules that you can use to help you to manage your organisation. And there are over 15 million businesses now around the world that use Bitrix24, and the system is available in two different editions. Okay, so we have the Bitrix24 cloud system, and we have the Bitrix24 self-hosted solution. It's also called the on-premise edition as well, but essentially with that self-hosted edition, you want to see that as a private cloud edition of Bitrix24, which you can either host locally on your own local server, it can be on your own private cloud, or we can provide our hosting service. And then in terms of pricing, so prices start from approximately $49 per month for a cloud-based system, so that's starting at the basic cloud edition per month. Or if you're interested in the self-hosted edition, the price starts at $3,590 for 12 months. And then for year 2 and ongoing annually, you will pay a 25% renewal fee on the self-hosted edition to continue to access the system. And that pricing there, that's at the starting edition, which is the Business 50 edition on the self-hosted. Okay, so today's webinar is all about business processes. So we'll see today how we can manage business processes inside Bitrix24. But I think it's important, first of all, to actually understand what are business processes. Okay, so a business process is essentially, it's a flow of information that's defined by a route or a scheme. Okay, and the business process module within Bitrix24, it allows you to execute and monitor workflows on many different objects such as documents, CRM items like leads and deals. It can be on tasks and also HR items such as leave requests and expenses. Bitrix includes a very advanced editor tool with simple action blocks from which processes can be constructed. And I think it's important to understand, first of all, within Bitrix24, there isn't one type of business process. There's a full range of types of processes. So here we're including 5 different types of processes. So let's just go through these in some more detail, first of all. So first of all, we can see here is a sequential business process. So a sequential business process will perform a series of consecutive actions on an item from a predefined start point to a predefined end point. So if we just go into our Bitrix system, this is a sequential business process here. So this is a leave request. So someone who is submitting for holiday leave inside the system, this is using a sequential business process. So we have a start point here. We then go through the request, and based on here, we can see a status of an approval. So you're either approving or rejecting the request. It then goes down a specific flow here based on that approval action. And then we get to a point further down here where you've got the endpoint. Okay, so you've got that start point and a predefined endpoint and the flow of that workflow in the middle. Then the next type of process is a state-driven business process. So a key difference with a state-driven process is that you do not have those start and end points, okay? What it does have instead is a series of statuses, and on each status, then you will trigger child processes connected to that status. So if we go back into our Bitrix system, here we can see, so you can see it looks very different, first of all, because we don't have that flow from start to an end. So you can see here, this is a state-driven business process. So we've got different statuses here. You'll see a state-driven business process most commonly used on documents. So here you can see the different statuses of the document from draft, publishing, and approval. And then on those different statuses, we can see the child processes that are going to be run on there. Okay, the next type of process we have are CRM automations. So these are very popular. So if we go back into our Bitrix system and let's go into the CRM, we do have a webinar specifically on CRM, so you can join us for that in the future. But if we go into, let's say, go into our leads area here, or you can go into your deal section. Then inside here, essentially what we can do is you can set up automation rules here. So let's say, for example, when we're progressing the deal through the system, we're going to create a task here to create a proposal, for example. So it's automatically generating a document in the system. And we might also, for example, here, we're going to send an SMS to the client to chase them if they would like to proceed with that quote. So you can set up a variety of integrations, whether it's communicating with the customer, or it could be creating actions or alerts for internal staff. At each stage of your sales process, you can set up these automation rules. Okay, then we also have RPAs and SPAs. So RPAs are robotic process automations. So very similar in terms of what it uses from the CRM, essentially, because what we do with a robotic process automation, again, we use stages. Okay, just like in leads and deals, here we've got an employee onboarding workflow. So here we've got the different stages that we're progressing the onboarding through, from HR to IT to accounts. So it's going through those different departments. And at each stage, what we do, we've got the different automation set up. Okay, so it's using a lot of the functionality from the CRM in terms of stages and in terms of automations inside the system here. Okay, we also have our SPA feature. So you need to have at least a professional cloud edition to use this, but essentially the smart process automation feature allows you to create your own entities inside the CRM system. So rather than having to use leads and deals, contacts and customers, you can create your own entities using the SPA feature. So here, for example, as soon as the deal is won and completed, we're automatically creating a job inside the CRM where we're managing all of the tasks and work associated to that job. So here again, we're using stages and automations to manage this, and all of the information about the job we can then store inside the job page here. Okay. And then lastly, we also have smart scripts. So you can see here, this is in red because this is a really new feature in Bitrix24. So essentially, smart scripts allow you again to run a series of automations, just like we saw in leads and deals. But rather than having to trigger the automation flow on the changing of the stage, you can run this manually on specific actions. So let's say, for example, here I've got my contacts. I could filter down into a specific group of contacts, and then I can create my smart script and run that through the system. So let's say if I wanted to send, I've got an email with a questionnaire, and can select that through here and send it out to that specific segment of people, and I can control when that script and that automation is run inside the system. Okay, so there is a look at some of the different types of business processes. So you can see there is a huge variety of types of automations that we can set up. So let's just take a look now at some of the areas where we can run those business processes inside Bitrix24. So first of all, running business processes we can run through the HR and administration area. So that would mainly be for leave requests and expenses, so your HR workflows. Inside the CRM, essentially on most areas of the CRM system, from leads, deals, contacts and companies, we can run different types of business processes. Automations can be running leads and deals. You can run full sequential business processes in all entities and in the SPA feature as well. We can run processes on documents. So we'll see in a second where those can be run. And as I mentioned, on documents, that's where you're most likely to see those state-driven business processes. We can also run processes on lists. So essentially lists are like tables of information. So you can run a process on a list, and it's also possible to run those on tasks and orders inside the store feature. With the self-hosted edition, this is the most advanced edition of Bitrix24. It's also possible to run unique processes on, for example, user profiles. So when a user updates their profile, you might want to trigger a process in the system. So with the self-hosted system, it allows you to create custom triggers and processes through Bitrix24. So let's go into our Bitrix system and let's just take a look at some of those areas again. So I mentioned in the administration area, we can run processes. So if we go into the more section here and into the workflow, here we can see different types of workflows that we can start to run, such as, let's say, a request leave form. It opens up the form and we can then start to trigger that process through the system. We've already seen quite heavily already inside the CRM where we can run automations inside the system. But what you can also do is if we go into, let's say, a lead, you could also manually trigger processes using the feature here. So this is where we can see all the processes connected to our lead database. Okay, so you can run processes through their system as well. Let's go into the drive area. So inside the drive, we go into the company drive area. What we can do, you just first of all need to make sure that you can see all the processes, but before you'll be able to run those processes, you would need to turn on the configure business process feature here. So you just need to tick that and then you can run your business processes on documents. So let's say I might want to run an approval process on a document first of all before other people could access it. I could run that on there, for example. We mentioned in tasks, so tasks and projects is a really powerful area of Bitrix. You can set up automations on your different projects, first of all. So inside here, based on the different stage of the task, we can set up essentially an automation process. So a really good example here is, let's say if the task has a deadline and it becomes overdue, then what we can do is we've got a trigger here. So that is going to automatically update the stage of the task to overdue. And when it becomes overdue, we've got some automation set up here. So we're going to change who is responsible for the task, and we're going to set up a notification as well to notify the team that this task is now overdue. We need to work to get it back on track. Okay, and we also, if we go into our projects area, and let's go into one of our projects that we're working on. Inside a project, we've also got lists. So essentially lists are essentially tables of information. So for example, you might have an expenses list connected to a project with all of the different expenses associated to the project. And again, inside here, you can run business processes. So let's say if we add an expense into this project, we might want to run an approval process to have that expense approved or rejected inside this system. Okay, so that's a look there at the different areas where we can run our business processes. So essentially, Well, one thing to get from this webinar today is there is a huge variety of different types of processes and also a huge variety of areas within Bitrix where you run those business processes. It really is built into the entire framework of the Bitrix24 system. Okay, so let's see if we have any questions. So if you have any questions, please do put them into the comments box on YouTube, and we're happy to answer those for you. A question we have had earlier on is how can I use the SPA feature? So that's the smart process automation feature. So if you're wanting to use this feature, I'm not sure if you can let me know which edition of Bitrix you're running, but essentially you can search in the top here, Smart Process Automation, and you'll see it will come up as a menu item, but only if you have at least a professional cloud edition of Bitrix24. Okay, so if you're on a free, a basic, or a standard cloud, you're not going to see this feature because it's not on your edition of Bitrix. But if you do have access to it, you can also see it through the menu in the CRM. You can then start to create your smart process automation entities inside the system here. Okay, so that's how we can set up a smart process automation. Okay, so moving on now, we've seen how we can actually trigger those processes in lots of different areas of Bitrix. Now, let's actually take a look at how we can create a business process. And what we will do is we'll create a business process using the business process editor tool. So we're going to create a sequential business process. Okay, so Bitrix includes a very advanced visual editor tool for building business processes. And it uses a simple drag and drop technology. And there's over 40 pre-built action blocks that you can use. So what we'll do in this demonstration is we're going to create a business process looking at the different stages that a deal is at. And based on those different stages, we're going to constantly keep looking at the stages to see what stage the deal is at. And then we're going to create triggered processes based on the stages. So let's go into our deal database here. So we're going to run it on this pipeline here, the UK office, and we can see the different stages that we've got for our UK office pipeline. So these are the jobs that are being worked on. So we've got new deal, confirm requirements, building the quotes, submitting the quote, and then moving on to the invoicing stage. So let's see how we can actually create that business process. So first of all, we go into the settings area of the CRM, and then we want to go into the automation area and click in the business processes system here. And then we want to go down to our deal section and add a new template. So we're going to build out a brand new business process here. So let's give this a title first of all. Okay, so we're going to be calling this changing of the deal stage process. You can also add a description, and you can then choose when this is run. Okay, so there's different options here, and it's important to get this right for how you want your process to run. So for example, we might just want to run this when the deal is added. Now, we don't want to do this for this particular type of process because we want to constantly be looking at the stage of the deal. So it's really pointless doing that when it's added because it will only be at the first stage. We could do it when something is changed on the deal, or we could also manually run this. Okay, so let's do it when there is a change inside the deal. Okay, so as you can see here, I mentioned this is a sequential business process, and we can tell that because we've got a start point and we've got an end point. Okay, and on the right hand side, this is where we can see all of the different action blocks that we have for our business process designer tool. Okay, so you can see all of the different types here that we can use. Now, we want to first of all add a condition into here because what we want to do is look at the different stages that the deal is at. So we're going to come into here, and now let's go into our system, and we want to look at a specific stage of the deal. So we're going to come into here and come and find our stage in the system. So essentially what you're seeing here, these are all the different essentially elements of information inside the deal. So first of all, let's have a look at, that's where we look at building the quote. So we'll call this building the quote stage. Okay, and then the second condition, we want to look at when the quote has been submitted. Now, this may look a bit complex of information inside the system here. Our team here at Interface, we can help to build out your workflows. Okay, so we can understand your workflows in detail and help to build those out inside the business process designer tool. Okay, so there we go. And then the last stage we're going to look at is once it has been invoiced. Okay, so those are the three conditions we've set up. Okay, so there we go. So we've got our three conditions here. So this is where the system is constantly looking to see what stage the deal is at. And when it's at one of those specific stages, we then want to run specific actions. Okay, so when we're building out our quote, let's say we want to do a credit check first of all. So we want to check that the business has funds for the quote that we're building. And once the quote has been submitted, let's say we're going to pause for 7 days, and then we want to create an automated action for the sales rep to phone the client to get back in contact. And then once that's been approved and we're invoicing, we're going to notify the sales manager. And let's then also thank the customer that for once they've made the order, we're going to send them an email thanking them for their order. So that's essentially, we're running on those three different stages there, specific actions using the variables inside the system here. And so essentially you can use all of these different action blocks inside the system here. So you can see there's a huge variety of different actions that you can create inside the system here for your use, essentially using the Bitrix24 business process designer tool. Okay, so let's look at how we can create a process inside the system. Okay, so now let's take a look at actually how we can trigger these different types of business processes. So as we just saw there, where we were actually creating that business process, you saw how we could run it when a deal is added. So, okay, so when the deal is added, it will just run it once then. We could do it when anything is changed, and that's the setting we chose. So when any change is made in that deal, it would then rerun this process. Or we could also do it manually as well. So there's different ways you can trigger the creation of the process inside the system. So as we say there, we can do it on creation and on updates. You can manually run a business process. So as we saw in the feed area, when we want to create a leave request, or it could be where we saw in the lead section where I manually selected the workflows from the top right hand corner. And also then on documents, you would manually run a business process. It's also possible to use webhooks. So you might want to trigger the creation of a workflow based on another system or action or process. But also with this self-hosted edition, we can run more advanced triggers. So for example, we might want to use an email box, for example, to trigger the creation of a ticket inside a help desk module. So you can create more advanced triggers and automation processes using the self-hosted edition. And you've got the full API available on the self-hosted system. So if you're wanting to create more advanced triggers, then the self-hosted option is where you would want to look. And if I just show you here, if we go into this is on this here, this system here we're looking at, this is a self-hosted edition of Bitrix. So you've got access to the control panel here. So this is essentially where all the back end of the Bitrix system, all the settings are held. And inside here, you've got a help desk area. So what you can do is you can connect mailboxes into Bitrix. And then what you can do is you can create rules on those mailboxes. So again, here you can start to trigger a process based on, say, an email coming into a specific mailbox. So you don't have access to this control panel on the cloud edition. So if you're wanting the most advanced edition of Bitrix, you would want the self-hosted edition of Bitrix24. Okay, so now let's take a look at some live examples of processes being run inside the systems. First of all, let's take a look at creating a project. Okay, so we've seen inside the Bitrix24 system previously in other webinars how you can create projects inside Bitrix24. So you can manage projects inside the system. And essentially, yeah, you can create those projects inside here. So this is where we can see all of our projects that we currently have set up inside the system. Now, the manual process of creating a project is quite timely, and it can be prone to errors if you input the wrong type of information or invite the wrong people into the project. So what you could do, as an example, is we could create a workflow to automatically create the project inside the system. So if we're going to create a project, okay, so we're going to create a new website design. So we want to add a new project for this in the system. So you can see here on this example, this new form business process, we're filling in a form with specific information about the project. Okay, so we're adding our manager, we're going to add a designer who's another role inside the project, and then we can add a description. Okay, so that's been added into the system here. And then from here, I can select the type of project that I would want to run. Okay. And this is important because this is a condition inside the system here. So based on the type of project that we select here, that will then create specific selection of tasks automatically, and it will bring specific people into the project. Okay, so if you have different types of projects in the background in the business process designer tool, you could then create all the different types of tasks that need to be set up for that type of project. And using this business process designer tool, we can have that then automatically create those tasks inside the system. So we'll submit that request to create the project. Now I've been made the project manager, so I just need to approve the request, and that will now automatically create the project inside Bitrix with the specific tasks that need to be set up for that project. So you don't have to manually create all of these projects inside the system. Bitrix can manage this for you. Okay, so let's now go into our website design project. We've just set this up, so we can now see the tasks that automatically been set up. It's invited specific people into the project, and I can click into those tasks and see all of the information about the task inside the system. So you can see here, using the business process designer tool, it can streamline the creation here of your project inside the system and reduce any human error as well. Okay, and so let's take a look at another example is, let's say, a holiday request. Okay, so let's go into our workflow area, and I want to submit a new holiday request in the system. So I'm going to add the request. So again, you can see here we're filling in a form with specific information about the request. And you can see here we've got specific fields that are mandatory and some that are optional. Again, that's completely customizable to what your business process would be. So you can configure this to exactly how you would want your business process to work inside this system. And so from here, what we can then do is we can submit this request. And we can see now that's now gone to my manager to either approve or to reject inside the system. So myself as the manager, I can go into my automation area inside Bitrix, and I can see that request has come through. Okay, but before I'm going to accept it, I'm going to go into our company drive area, and inside the drive module here, we've got the absence chart. So inside here, I can see all of the different holiday requests or any types of leave inside the business. Okay, so I can see the request for June. Nobody's currently off in June, so I'm happy to approve that request for Mark. And that's now been approved inside the system. Mark will be notified and it will get added to the absence chart. Okay, so that's another example there. And the last example, we'll look at something quite different here, is that smart script feature that we mentioned. So that's a new feature inside the system. So inside here, we've got our smart scripts area. So let's just take a look at a script we have set up. So we've got one here called Rainy Day SMS. So let's say if you are maybe a maintenance, a ground maintenance organization where you are really dependent on the weather if you're able to perform the work for a specific day. If you're helping with a client's garden, doing the maintenance for the garden, if it's raining, you're not going to be able to do the work for that particular day. So we can see here we've got a script set up, which is an SMS message that is set up so it dynamically populates with the information about the contact. And we've got an automated template set up explaining that due to the weather, there's no gardening work taking place today. Okay, so we've got that saved inside the system. And now what I can do is I can select from our customer database here. I know the customers who we're supposed to be going to today. So I can select a specific group of people. And then from there, I'm going to run our rainy day SMS script. So this is now running an automation process on that specific segment of people that I have selected. And so if we go into the contacts page now inside Bitrix, we can see that SMS message has now been sent out to the customer. So you can see how you can use the business process scripts to send out the bulk volumes of automated communications dynamically populated with the person's details to make them aware. And this is one example, but there are thousands of different examples as to how you could use these different types of script features in Bitrix24. Okay, so that is a look at several examples for our different types of processes that we're running Bitrix. Now, in terms of the differences between the cloud and the self-hosted, so most of the tools are available in both the cloud and self-hosted systems. We've mentioned, obviously, the smart process automation feature. You need to have at least a professional cloud edition of Bitrix. But both editions include tools for documents, HR, and the core CRM items. I think really that the main difference and benefit of a self-hosted option is the ability to run processes on extra modules, such as on user profiles or creating more advanced rules on mailboxes when emails come into the system. And you've also got access to the full API. So if you're wanting to create the most advanced types of processes, then the self-hosted edition is the most suitable option for you. Okay, so in summary today, we've seen how we can run business processes on a huge variety of different tools in Bitrix, from on documents, CRM items, HRs, and in lists. We can use the simple drag and drop business process designer tool to create sequential business processes, and we can create automations in the CRM on robotic process automations, and we can use that smart script feature to actually trigger those processes on specific segments of our database. And then we can also choose how those processes are run, whether it's manually, automatically, or it could even be by an API call. Okay, so here are a selection of our up and coming webinars. We're here every other Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And please do register at interface.com/webinars for those future webinars. We'll look forward to seeing you on those. But thank you very much for your time today. Hope you found our Better Business Processes webinar useful. If you have any questions in the meantime, you can contact us at sales@interface.com. And one of our team will be happy to help you. Thank you very much for your time today. I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Bye for now.